All right. 1:02 by my watch. So I'm calling the October 21st, 2024 meeting of the Albemarle County Architectural Review Board to order. Could you call the roll, please?
Yes, Mr. Vanderwerf,
Here.
Mr. Mitsuno,
Here.
Mr. Stoner,
Here.
Mr. Hancock,
Here.
Mr. Vanderwerf.
Here.
Thank you.
I'm sorry.
Henningsen.
Oh, well, I thought I heard Vanderwerf again, but
Yeah. But did you
Ben,
call?
did I
am I
not
here
say?
twice or did I?
Oh, I said Vanderwerf twice.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sorry about that, Mr. Henningsen. I'm
Here.
Sorry about you're glad to have you back, aren't you?
All right. Today's meeting is a hybrid meeting. The public may access and participate in the meeting electronically. Instructions for doing so are posted on the Albemarle County website at the Albemarle County calendar. The public has real-time audiovisual access to this meeting over Zoom and real-time audio access over telephone, both as provided in the lawfully posted meeting notice. This meeting is being recorded and will be made available on the county's website. This meeting is a public record and subject to disclosure under the Freedom of Information Act. All speakers, when it is your turn to speak, please first state your name for the record. Applicants who are making presentations, note that your presentation is limited to a total of 15 minutes, which you can divide among your team members. Staff will let us know when the 15 minutes are up. If applicants in the meeting room have team members attending virtually and will need to present, please make that known when you come to the podium. Everyone who is participating virtually, please mute your microphone until it is your turn to speak. Do any ARB members have anything to disclose?
No.
All right, great. Are there any members of the public that want to make a comment about a project that is not on the agenda for review?
Not at this time.
All right, great. We do not have any consent agenda items today. We do not have any work sessions today. So we will roll into our one regular review item, which is SP 2024-20, Carter Machinery Outdoor Storage, Display and Sales.
Yes, good afternoon. The application being reviewed today is an advisory review for a special use permit. The proposal to establish outdoor storage, display, and sales associated with the development of an equipment rental facility. The special permit for outdoor storage is particular to the entrance corridor. Machinery and equipment sales, service, and rental is a by right use in the zoning district, but outdoor storage in the entrance corridor is a special use. There'll be three parts to your action today. One's to provide a recommendation of the special use permit. The other is related to changes to the concept plan, and the third is comments on the site plan. The site is located at 721 Rio Road West. North Side Library is to the west, and several commercial properties to the north and east. The concept plan shows portions of the existing warehouse being demolished, areas for outdoor storage to the southeast and southwest of the remaining structure, security fencing enclosing the storage area, interior planting islands along the front of the building and the storage area, and additional parking spaces. Entrance corridor guidelines stipulate that storage areas should be situated in a location that eliminates visibility. If after appropriate siting, the area still has a negative visual impact on the entrance corridor, screening should be provided. In an attempt to screen these areas from the entrance corridor, the concept plan shows fencing, evergreen trees, and existing vegetation to remain. However, the fencing shown is not screening fencing. The evergreen trees will take time to mature, and the existing vegetation near the western parcel boundary has been removed, which is expected to allow clear visibility of the equipment and storage areas from various points along Rio Road. Staff recommends the concept plan be revised to eliminate the 11 space parking row south of east of the building and replace it with a row of evergreens, and to show evergreen screening the L-shaped planting island near the western parcel boundary. Along the frontage, there's currently a small planting strip with no frontage landscaping, and the concept plan does not propose to add any. 39 parking spaces are shown, but only 7 are required by ordinance. Staff recommends eliminating the parking and paving adjacent Rio Road, increasing the planting area's depth, and showing landscaping that better satisfies the entrance corridor frontage landscaping requirements. Along the eastern parcel boundary, the concept plan shows existing vegetation. However, this vegetation's off-site and sparse in some locations. From Route 29, filtered views of the storage area is expected through the site entrances and breaks in intervening development. Staff recommends revising the concept plan to show evergreen screening along the eastern parcel boundary. Staff also recommends a few conditions for outdoor storage, for the outdoor storage area, lighting and landscape plans. Equipment or staffers recommend several revisions to the concept plan prior to planning commission review. With the revisions prior to PC review and the conditions shown in the staff report, staff recommends no objection to the SP requests. We also have recommendations listed in the staff report that were provided for the site plan submittal. I'd be happy to answer any questions you may have.
All right, thanks a lot, Chris. Guess I'll start with Dave. Do you have any questions?
Thank you for your report, Chris. No questions.
Tara?
Chris, just to clarify, so you had mentioned in the diagram, the 11 space parking area that you were recommending to be converted to landscaping, that was on the entrance corridor side of the road where the red box was indicated?
Correct. In front of, or as the existing conditions are in front of the building that's being removed, they're proposing adding parking spaces. So we're requesting those parking spaces not be added in a planting area, be provided along it's the front between the Rio Road and the storage areas. An additional row of evergreen shrubs.
Great. And then I guess the question it raised, because I think I had, when I was reviewing, I had some confusion around the parking area that was indicated. Had you considered parking along the area that's currently designated for evergreen shrubs to screen equipment? Just seeing as it seems like that side would be closest to the equipment that would be stored in the back.
I guess there's two separate from evergreens. That was staff's recommendation of providing another row, so a double staggered row of evergreens in that area, and then frontage, removing parking spaces along the frontage and the parking paving along the frontage to provide frontage landscaping. So it's kind of a twofold recommendation.
Great. Okay. Well, thank you for clarifying that. Sounds good.
Frank Stoner?
Yeah, thanks, Chris. Could you pull the site plan up again? As I'm like.
One second.
Yep.
Please tell me.
I want to clarify how many parking spaces we're talking about eliminating. And if we're eliminating the parking spaces adjacent to the fence and the screening. Could that be mitigated with a privacy fence there instead of?
This
So that
this
row.
is the 11 space parking row that's
Yep.
being, and then this would
And
be
all
the
that.
parking and paving.
In your view, if there was a privacy fence where the evergreens are now, would that eliminate the need to remove those parking spaces, or?
I think it could be a possibility. Not all the equipment heights were provided, they're just kind of maximum height, so there would still be the potential for visibility even above a screening fence. But providing a screening fence, I think, would possibly eliminate the need to remove those particular parking spaces. Likely in conjunction with providing a planting area for frontage landscaping.
Would it be possible to look at this on Google Earth to just sort of get a view from the street?
these buildings are being.
being removed.
Yeah,
The original building to the right stays, is that
Right.
correct? And then as you go west, just curious as to what the landscaping in front of the library looks like.
it's.
Certainly deeper. But pretty low. Okay, thank you. Appreciate it.
Frank?
Thanks, Chris. Understand this is a recommendation we're forwarding to the planning commission regarding the special use. Just thinking about next steps, will we see this again? Will we see anything for the architecture? Or is it, this is the only time we'll see this?
So I guess depending on the recommendations, it could potentially, or for the SP review, it could come back to the board if it's not all, because staff's recommendation was if all the revisions to the concept plan were done, we recommend approval. So it's kind of a gray area if only some are done. You can look at the conditions and actions. And if you're okay with not seeing those again, if only 3 out of 6 revisions that are done, that might be a possibility. At this time, there were no architectural changes proposed, but this would come back as a site plan review, likely a major amendment, I believe.
Okay, that all makes sense. Yeah, I guess that's what I'm thinking about is like when these buildings are removed, what we're left with and how that's visible from the corridor. But since it's like a retrofit and not a new building, is that in our purview to review that? Like, just looking at the, I guess, east and west facade, well, the visibility of this building from the corridor. I didn't know if,
Guess, or you guess you're referring to, although there aren't, that's the most technical sense, architectural changes proposed, but there are architectural changes in the sense that the building being removed will allow visibility of elevation that wasn't previously visible.
Correct.
Okay.
or is this it, that they get this approval?
Can't force changes to the existing building. Is that correct?
Well, didn't we look at a building up 29 North that something similar happened? They removed a portion of the building and we were left with. Yeah, and so I would,
Malloy.
like, we don't know when they remove that, we don't know what's there. Unless you do,
Can I chime in here
then that's visible.
representing the applicant?
Talk. Connor, you can't talk right now till it's your turn to give your presentation. Sorry.
It's possible that that could be reviewed with the demolition permit.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I mean, it's more of a, like, does that fall under our or under ARB guidelines? It's more of a procedural question versus, yeah, I'm just unsure. I didn't know.
Yeah, I think that the demolition requires I believe it would require a demolition permit. Any permit on the entrance corridor would require some level of approval, so I think we could take a look at that.
Other than that, I don't have any questions. Thank you.
All right, I don't have any questions that weren't already asked, so guess we'll move on to the applicant's presentation if they're ready.
Connor, if you can unmute, are you going to be the one doing the presentation?
I'll do the presentation, and we have Aaron Breed, who's a civil engineer, Lindsay Byer, who's an architect, and Carter Berkey, who's facilities manager for Carter Machinery, if you all have any specific questions that they could answer.
Okay, I'm going to start your time now. You'll have 15 minutes. And when you have a minute left, I'll interrupt you and let you know.
Right,
Okay, thank you.
thank you. I've got a quick slideshow that will just go over mostly some of the images that you all have seen, and hopefully clear up kind of the order of operations in which we're looking to do things. So this, we should come before you in the future with a site plan review with some proposed modifications to the exterior of the building with the demolition, as well as potential sign permit. So this is likely the first time of a few times you may see us in front of you. And again, here's just for the special use permit for the outdoor storage. So just some quick background. Carter Machinery Company, this location will be a Carter rental facility. If you Google it, you'll see Carter Rental, the cat rental store, Charlottesville. We're currently operating, we received our zoning clearance about a month ago. All equipment that we are currently renting out is being stored inside the large warehouse. So we're seeking the special use permit to be able to move that storage outside because the warehouse will be repurposed later on once that equipment's moved. Carter has about 50 locations across Virginia, DC, and Maryland. This is just quick picture references of some of the equipment that's rented from the facility. If you go to the website, these are different types of equipment that you'll see that you can rent. Importantly, we cannot rent heavy equipment as defined in the zoning ordinance from this location. So none of the equipment rented meets the Virginia DMV standards for overweight or over-dimensional vehicle configurations. That is equipment that is rented at different Carter facilities, but this location will not feature any heavy equipment or any heavy vehicle rentals. Site location, we've seen the overview. Existing site conditions. Just want to point out the very narrow existing landscape buffer right here. You've seen the concept plan. Just to talk a little bit about some of the staff recommendations. This area, can you see my mouse? This area right here is really what we're talking about in terms of visually seeing the equipment that will be rented. The proposed buildings to be demolished here, the concrete slab will remain, and this upper portion will have some amount of equipment storage as well as the back portion. Only 7 parking spots are required per the ordinance, but that's partially because of the very small 650 square feet of customer service area. And so while most of this facility will be used by Carter, only a small portion will be open for the rental office. So both of staff comments would suggest expanding this row of evergreens here to eliminate these 11 portions of parking, as well as extending the landscape from here out would reduce parking by between 20 and 25 spaces. There are a few spaces outlined here. Unsure if we're going to keep those because most of the equipment will come through here. And so we just have a little bit of a concern about the significant reduction in parking, again, 20 to 25 spaces if we were to move this section and this section, leaving really only a few spaces in front. There's possibly room to extend this planting buffer to include a double row. We're also open to different types of fence screening in front of these parking spaces. We'd also like additional input from you all about what you would maybe like to be seen done here. Again, the existing planting median is very, very small. As you saw at the libraries, theirs has been pushed back a good amount, but their building also is significantly farther back. So we would lose a good amount of space in here, and it's questionable if we would be able to keep parking spaces here just from dimension requirements. So just to highlight again, which buildings will be removed. This building will remain, these will be removed, this back one removed. And these are some site sections. The properties starts at about 515 feet elevation near the road, and it drops about 10 or 11 feet towards the back of the property. So there is a fair amount of screening just by the elevation change. The largest piece of, or the tallest piece of equipment, when it is stored, folded, would be 12 feet, and those larger pieces of equipment would be stored in the back. So even without screening in the front portion, evergreens or fencing, the majority of the equipment in the back will be. Sorry, is that a question? Will be screened there. And the bottom section here, this is the proposed security fencing that we have for behind the evergreen plantings. The rest of the property where it's not visual from the street will be chain link fencing. And then this is just the concept plan again to close here and open any questions for us. Thank you.
All right, thanks for your presentation. Guess we'll start with Frank Stoner.
I don't have any questions.
Thanks. Dade?
Thank you for your presentation. In terms of the double row of evergreens recommended by staff, if in lieu of removing the parking, if that were provided behind the row in the current plan, I guess reducing the storage area slightly, is that an option?
Aaron, could you chime in on the potential room that we have here?
Yes, yeah, hearing your concerns about the amount of parking reduction, in terms of your overall priorities, would it be preferable to reduce the storage area to accommodate a double row of trees or reduce the parking?
So if I could jump in, this is Aaron Breed with Balzer and Associates. Right now, we have between the security fencing and the row of 11 parking spaces, there's a 10-foot green space area. We looked at that. One option I think would maybe provide a little better benefit is we can move those spaces towards Ryle Road a little bit, and that would provide a deeper green space area, which would allow enough room to get in a double staggered row of evergreens along that security fencing, and keep that evergreen in front of the fencing to help, provide a little better visual impact.
Thank you.
All right, Frank Hancock.
Sure. Just one question. Did you look at the possibility of adding street trees, where some of the parking spaces are along Rio? Just in your calculation of, the overall number of parking spaces you might need for expansion, or how that works with your program?
So, and that I suppose that's a question for conversation in terms of what number of really what the extension of the landscape buffer here would be acceptable, in that if we were to do cutout tree plantings like this at the entrance and then still leaving this narrow buffer, just also recognizing the power lines up here. So any tree planting would, be red bud size or similar. But given if we don't reduce our parking, we do need to add at least two large tree plantings somewhere within the parking area.
And this is Aaron Breed again. In the landscape islands that are closer to the front of the building, those where we're proposing some street trees there. But like Connor said, along Ryle Road with the overhead power line, it drastically limits landscape options there because of the overhead lines.
are there other utilities running along Route Road that would prohibit you from putting any plantings in, or is it just a function of, we might be limited with the tree size and height?
There are some underground utilities running along that frontage. I believe there's a gas line that goes through that. I think it's and I apologize, I think it's a 4-inch line, but I'm not 100% sure there. Most of the other lines are just the overhead lines going through there.
And then last question, did you look at like formalizing the western side? Right now, it's just a kind of a full expanse of asphalt, almost from building to building, from your building to the library. I guess, is there no requirement to define, drive aisle or any parking? Just curious if you looked at that.
Aaron, could you talk a little bit about that? We've talked about it. It is a bit strange in that the library and this property seem to run together there, and it is a parcel meets parcel private drive through that section, and we did talk about just the amount of room needed between the building and the back gate to be able to drive in and out the rental equipment. So there's no formal landscaping there. Just a kind of strange asphalt meets asphalt.
Correct. Like Connor was saying, there's a 30-foot shared access easement between the two properties to allow both parcels to have access to the entrance at the intersection there. And with sort of the asphalt to asphalt, it doesn't really lend much opportunity to put in much as far as landscaping through that corridor.
Okay, thank you. I don't have any more questions.
And I think as we move forward into finishing this concept plan, there's a good amount of flexibility to respond to staff comments here. And again, just looking for clarification, whether it's from ARB or staff, on what amount of reduction acceptable without, considering the need for parking along here.
Are there any easements along the front associated with that gas line or the overhead electric?
Yes, there are existing easements along that frontage.
All right, thanks. All right, are there any members of the public that want to make a comment?
Oh, I have a question for the applicant.
Sorry.
It's okay. Are the equipment areas on the concept plan, there's like a cluster of what looks like smaller equipment and then larger equipment in the rear? Is this intended to be showing how different equipment would be stored on the site, or how the applicant proposes to use the property, or
This is more demonstrative of just where equipment would be on the site, and highlighting that there would be two main equipment storage areas: this front section with the concrete pad and the back section which is mostly a gravel lot with some existing pads from the prior facility.
So there's no suggestion that, larger equipment won't be in that front area, for instance?
So 12 feet high is the tallest piece of equipment we must have, and we would keep anything. The proposed fence height, again, it is right now, at least the design, there is not offering full screening, but the equipment would stay around 6 to 8 feet at the proposed fence height here, with taller equipment in the back.
Okay, great. Thank you. That's helpful.
All right, thanks. I asked my question out of turn. So are there any members of the public that want to make a comment? All right, well, thanks. In that case, the ARB will now go into discussion. We'll start with Tara.
Great. I wanted to thank the applicant for making the presentation. I think, there are certainly some benefits to, having a use on the site that, retains what I think is probably the nicest building on site and makes use of the site. I think it sounds encouraging that there's some room to address staff's comments as far as providing evergreen screening along the portion where we'll have greater extent of visibility. So I'm looking forward to seeing that. As far as tree planting in the parking area that's directly on Ryle Road, I think it would be important to understand if any easements or utilities prevent the placement of any trees in that area. But in general, I think that I'm in agreement with some of my colleagues that plantings in some of those parking spaces, to the extent that, you are willing to propose them, would help meet the intent of the entrance corridor guidelines. And I guess the only other comment I had is that speaking to Frank's comments around some of the boundaries of the site, that there are portions on the I guess the page south of the concept plan as well, where it's a little unclear as to what's going to be happening, whether the landscape of the buffer along Ryer Road is going to be formalized, or whether there's existing asphalt that's just going to remain, or if a curb would be extended onto the site side of the parking area. So I think providing some clarity as to what exactly is going to be happening there would be helpful for us to see as well. Yeah, thank you. I appreciate your time.
Thanks. Frank Hancock?
Sure. I agree with Tara. I think, and agree or thank the applicant for a willingness to work with us. I think it would be nice to have some of those parking spaces given over to tree plantings, or even just kind of an enhanced landscape character. The library site, although it didn't really look it in the image that we looked at, is pretty heavily landscaped and pretty thoughtfully landscaped, and at times, most of the time looks really nice. It has a lot of seasonality. So just thinking about this site in context, I think there needs to be maybe a little bit of higher level, given kind of the visibility of some of these things. I would be interested in seeing on the east side, maybe either per staff's comments, the double row, or looking at a fence that would actually, screen the equipment. And I think Dade made a good point that we don't have to necessarily eat into the parking area, that could come kind of inboard into the storage area if there's room. But yeah, I appreciate the retrofit of the project. I think, anytime you're giving new life to an existing building and cleaning up with the demolition of some of those other buildings, I think will look nice. And I do think if we see this again at a site plan level or demo permit level, I think it would be interesting just to see on that west side, have that dimensioned out where you showed the 30-foot access easement, and then what remains between that and the west facade of the building, something to address kind of the asphalt wasteland or expanse. And driving in and out of there, it's a little confusing too. And especially when you add, now if you have, heavy equipment being delivered or sent out, I think there could be some issues there, but.
Thanks. Dade?
Thank you, and I agree as well with Frank and Taro, and appreciate the applicant's proposal and retaining the existing portions of the existing use, and especially their indicated willingness to be flexible in developing the landscape plan. I think, as Frank pointed out, I think I would be interested in seeing some additional planting immediately adjacent to the corridor. If understory ornamental trees, red buds, et cetera, are possible under the power lines, I think that would be very positive. And then additional ground level plantings to tie in potentially to the adjacent library landscape. I think it would further be ideal if the space is near the building, and perhaps an additional space or two, if some of the parking is exchanged, could be used for a larger canopy tree just to further enhance the landscape of the corridor. I think, like Frank, would be open either to a double row of evergreens or a single row with an effective screening fence. And I appreciate Frank's insight about an observation about the extent of asphalt, the contiguous nature of that between the two properties. And I think, like him, would be interested in some exploration of whether there was a way to further define the access on this property and perhaps break up that expanse with landscape. And I think in that context of the applicant's flexibility of increasing maybe the landscape, decreasing the parking could certainly be, I think that could be a fair exchange to support additional parking on site beyond what's required by the code.
Thanks, Frank.
Thanks. I'm generally in agreement with my cohorts here. If I understand correctly, really the scope of our review today is focused on the special use permit for outdoor storage, which puts kind of the focus on the fence and the landscaping. I agree, either double row or an opaque fence would make sense. I think based on what I see at the library, I'm guessing that we're pretty limited in terms of what we can do next to the corridor with regard to any sort of meaningful trees out there. I'll be interested to see this come back in site plan form, maybe with the proposed modifications to the building. Because the building to me is maybe a bigger issue than the storage, quite honestly, because it just it's not exactly a architectural wonder. If there was a way to pull some of that parking away from the building and get some landscaping up against the building, that would be nice. Or again, to take some of the parking spaces that are immediately adjacent to the building to create some landscape beds with something that's got some vertical size and evergreen character to it that might help sort of buffer the blank walls of the building. But I assume we'll talk about that when it comes back.
All right,
Thank you.
thanks.
Yep.
So yeah, I'm also in agreement with everybody. I think, generally I support the overall idea and kind of agree that some way, shape, or form of more landscaping would be appropriate. So I'm interested to see what it looks like when it comes back. I guess if we could take a look at the motion.
So the recommendation is, so there's a recommendation for the special use permit. And that is, as staff is recommending it, that's dependent on revisions to the concept plan. So this first group of comments are recommended changes to the concept plan. The second group is the recommendation on the special permit.
And to add, it wasn't brought up much in discussion. There is the recommendation of evergreens along the eastern parcel boundary that to think on and comment.
Yeah, I guess, maybe just at the risk of going out of order a little bit, looking at the recommendations on the special use permit, I didn't take any issue with any of those. They seemed like fairly reasonable kind of boilerplate recommendations, so, does anyone have any comment on that? And then we can go into the, concept plan recommendations.
That sounds like a good approach to me, Chris.
All right, so I think we're good on the special use permit recommendations. Concept plan.
Wanted to continue going in reverse order. I guess maybe at number 5, we could change the word eliminate to significantly reduce. So I think that's consistent with what we discussed. I don't know if we would add like a number 7, that would be consider or explore reductions in pavement and further definition of drive aisle and increased landscaping at west property border.
Could you say that one more time, please?
Let's see, explore reductions in pavement, further definition of drive aisle and increased scaping at western property boundary with library parcel. I don't know whether for number 3, folks would stick with eliminate, or we would change that as well to significantly reduce.
Well, for number 3, why don't we say something like, sorry,
Oh, no, please go ahead, Tarl.
but why don't we do something like,
Yeah.
revise the concept plan to provide additional evergreens or opaque landscaping fence or something like that. I'm agnostic to whether the parking stays, but I think it's important that additional screening is provided.
I guess to clarify, that 11 space parking row, is that immediately in front of the evergreens that are currently proposed?
Right.
Yes,
Okay.
yeah. And then Chris, you were noting that you had a recommendation to provide evergreens at the
Yeah, recommendation number 2 is evergreens, the L-shaped planting island, which is on the western parcel boundary, and then evergreens along the eastern parcel boundary. But it sounds like in your discussion that might be either and or opaque fence instead of a security fence along that eastern parcel boundary. Or I guess either parcel boundary, opaque fence would kind of get to that point of screening, a screening fence versus a security safety fence. So maybe it's just.
Is that visible from the
item,
corridor?
Hmm.
Is that visible from the corridor?
Along the eastern parcel boundary, it's visible through the off-site landscaping because it's not as dense as kind of illustrated in the concept plan through entrances into developments along Route 29 and just the breaks in the buildings along Route 29.
Yes, when you talk about the L shape though, that's on the western side.
Right, yeah, and then the visibility in between from the entrance along Ryle Road, looking into the rear of the site. The landscaping or the vegetation that was there currently has been removed in establishing the temporary site, so,
So I think item 2 should have eastern revised to western, and then we should add an item that defines the southern boundary needing either evergreens or screen fencing. Sorry, the eastern boundary.
oh,
needing-
eastern, yeah.
It could be added to item 2, or it could be another item.
I'm sorry, can you say it again?
So for item 2, change eastern to western. Is that correct, Chris?
Wait,
Oh, it's both. It
It's-
shows
it's
both.
both.
Okay, L-shaped planting. Okay, sorry, I've got it. Thank you. Now I understand how it's written. Sorry
Sorry
for
about
slow uptake.
The 1 and 2 each correspond to western and eastern boundaries. Is that? 1 is for the western boundary and 2 is for the eastern.
2 is a continuation of provide evergreens in that L-shape planting island along the western boundary and evergreens along the eastern boundary.
Okay, thank you. Sorry, I didn't read carefully.
Okay.
Just to be clear, these are all recommendations, not requirements. For the concept plan.
Staff is recommending that these changes be made to the plan before it goes to the planning commission.
So we won't see,
And you can, if you want to see it back, we can bring it back to you.
I would trust staff to review the implementation of these.
Well, I
If
would
staff
say
feels they're
that
clear enough to-
significantly reduce is kind of a broad
Yeah,
concept, and you
I
might
think
be
it would
interested
be-
to see it.
nice to see it
Okay.
again.
So we can assess whether it's significant or not. Okay.
If that doesn't hold them up, I don't know.
Are there other changes to the first set of comments?
I guess I'm gonna suggest we offer 8 under the consider or explore. Consider or explore substitution of parking spaces adjacent to the building for larger trees adjacent to the existing building.
And or landscaping to the extent.
Yeah,
If you could pull that parking back.
Yeah.
Could you actually get some green space between the parking and the building? That would be,
Or yeah, so sorry, maybe it's explore increased landscaping in front of the existing building. Including a planting strip or larger trees in place of parking spaces, something like that.
Can you just repeat that one more time?
Sure, explore providing increased planting in front of the building to remain. Including planting strip or substitution of parking spaces for trees, or trees for parking spaces. Substituting a tree for a parking space. And then 8 can go away.
So with increased understanding of item number 2, is the board okay with both those items? As written?
Yeah. Should we go to the third section, the site plan? Could I ask for, from a process perspective? That were you writing? I was wondering about the changes to the building itself. Is that gonna get picked up in site plan or are we gonna? Yeah, great.
All right, any other tweaks or anything? All right, in that case, anybody like to make a motion?
Be happy to move to recommend no objection to the request for a special use permit with the recommended revisions to the concept plan and conditions of approval as amended. Item 3, strike the text and replace with revise the concept plan to provide additional evergreens or opaque fence at the 11 space parking row. Item 5, strike eliminate and replace with significantly reduce. Add item 7, explore reductions in pavement and further definition of the drive aisles and increased landscaping at the western property boundary shared with the library. Add item 8, explore increased planting in front of the building to remain, including a planting strip or substitution of trees for parking spaces. No changes to recommendations relative to the special use permit and for the recommendations for the site plan with the addition of item 11, show all proposed changes to the building to remain.
All right, thanks. I'll second that. So if we could call the vote.
Mr. Henningsen,
Aye.
Mr. Hancock,
Aye.
Mr. Stoner,
Aye.
Mr. Mitsuno,
Aye.
Mr. Vanderwerf.
Aye.
All right, thanks a lot. So we will move on to other business. First of which
I'm
is.
sorry, can I interrupt for just
Oh,
a
yeah,
second?
yeah.
I just want to clarify that the board does want to see the revised concept plan back again.
Yes.
Oh, site plan.
The site
You're
plan
okay
will
with
co-
not seeing revisions to the concept plan?
Okay, seeing the site plan is on, yeah. I don't,
Yeah, I
You
think
guys
I'm
feel like-
okay for this to move forward and then we would see it again at site plan or demo plan or whatever the next step is. But as far as, I think,
But I think the issue is that it goes to the
So the concept plan would be revised to address these, that first set of comments. It could come back to you so that you can confirm that that's what you wanted. If you don't think that's necessary, it would go on to the planning commission and then on to the board. And whatever concept plan gets approved there, that will sort of set the, when the site plan comes in, the site plan will have to be consistent with that concept
right.
plan.
And so it's necessary, I think, for us to get the updated concept so that then the planning commission doesn't approve a concept plan that then sets the basis so that we really don't have the room to ask for the different. At that point, we'd be requesting a site plan that was different than the concept plan that the planning commission had approved. So I think it's cleaner if we
comes
if
back.
we have an agreement on the concept plan before then it gets the planning commission's buy-in and then before the applicant submits a site plan.
And that is consistent with how your review of special use permits typically goes.
okay.
so is it going to the board just for the special use permit for the outdoor storage?
Yes.
And this doesn't hold that up, that can, or the question of the use
Right.
permit. Or it doesn't.
Trying to.
The special use
understand the
permit is for
sequence.
the outdoor storage. All the screening and fencing and landscaping changes that we've recommended are specifically associated with that storage use. So it's tied to that concept plan
Okay.
that would go to the planning commission and on to the board of supervisors.
Okay. Because I know on some other applications we've received, when there's a plan approved by the planning commission, it has tied our hands in terms of being able to ask for updates and site planning, I think, or restricted it. So I think this is the best chance if members feel like the landscape changes are important ones to incorporate. break.
Why wouldn't the site plan come to us before it goes to the planning commission?
The special use permit will run its course. It will go through the review process, and then the applicant will prepare a site plan, which will then go through its own review process. The concept plan,
And wouldn't that come to us before it goes to the planning commission? That
the site plan will not go to the planning commission or the board of supervisors. It's a concept plan
Ah.
is associated with a special use permit application that will be taken through its process. If that's approved, then the applicant will prepare a site plan, which will come to you, but does not require planning commission or board of supervisors approval.
I mean, I think the question, staff would review, they would resubmit to you to address these comments prior to it going to the planning commission. So I guess I think we want to be sensitive. We don't want to hold up the process. We feel like these aren't major changes.
Yeah, I mean, if we just
Well, I
change the
guess-
word significant reduction to a specific number, that would give staff, I think, what they
Yeah,
needed.
maybe that's the question is,
Well,
if
we would need
staff-
to make
if
this
maybe
much more prescriptive, so it was check, check, check.
yeah,
Um,
that,
Yeah, I feel like if the scope is really just about outdoor storage as it relates to the special use permit, a lot of what we're talking about is not related to outdoor storage, it's related to other issues. And I guess the special use permit is a way to get some of these other things done. But I would ask, if they weren't doing outdoor storage, somebody could move in there tomorrow as a by right and we couldn't do a thing. But I worry about just overstepping our bounds as it relates to what it is we're actually reviewing for.
Yeah, because it seems like the special use permit is just the issue of like, can you have outdoor storage on this site?
How is it screened?
This particular special use permit is particular to sites in the entrance corridors. It's all about the visual impact on the entrance corridors. And so the comments that staff recommended in those first two groups, we do feel those are directly related to the proposed use. And there are items intended to offset the negative visual impacts on the entrance corridor street. And the applicant would like to comment? Are you okay with that?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, surely.
Connor, go ahead and unmute yourself. Talk.
Hello, can you
Yep,
hear me?
yep, we can hear you.
Yeah, I was just also seeking clarification on if this were to come back to the board, to you all to review one more time, which we're okay with. But again, the question of would that push back the subsequent planning commission that we are scheduled for in November? That was just my concern. We're totally okay with revising to these comments, but was just curious if that would push back the planning commission to December or further.
I don't have that schedule in front of me.
Planning commission. November 13th.
So when could a revised concept plan be submitted?
For these revisions, we could probably get something within the next week or two. They're not really substantial. We've already, since staff comments, we've kind of already spoken about them. So it would just be updating the visuals and figuring out ultimately how much parking. So 2 weeks, if needed.
So that brings us to the next ARB meeting date. So if you all were okay, just seeing it on the fly without any staff review, if 2 weeks turnaround is needed by the applicant, that's what would have to happen.
Would we be allowed to look at it as other business?
Okay, no, yeah, we would need the revised concept plan by end of business on October 29th. It's a
Alright.
week from today.
We can work with that.
To just be able to post it, we still wouldn't have time to prepare a staff report or review it.
I think that would be all right.
That's fine.
And does that work for the applicant?
Yes, it does. Thank you for that flexibility. Appreciate it.
All right,
Run.
great.
Okay.
All right.
Yeah. We'll see it November 4th.
Gonna miss approval of the minutes though.
Unless you want to move for them as you depart.
All right, speaking of which, does anybody want to move to approve the October 7th minutes?
Oh, sorry. Yes, yeah.
So moved.
Second.
All right, great. If we could call a vote.
Okay. Mr. Vanderwerf,
Aye.
Mr. Masuno,
Aye.
Mr. Hancock,
Aye.
Mr. Henningsen.
Aye. Thanks a lot. Do any board members or staff have any other items? Looks like no. The next ARB meeting is scheduled for November 4th. Are there any board members who will not be able to attend that one? All right, so looks like you will have a quorum. In that case, the meeting is adjourned until the next meeting on Monday, November 4th, 2024, and it is 2:04 by my watch. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.